Hey, what's going on, everybody? Manny here once again. Welcome to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sport lineup advice for the NBA and the NFL. I have a brand new video for you, ladies and gentlemen. But before I get started, like always, I appreciate you guys drop a like. And if you're new to the channel, first time here, never ever seen any of my NBA or NFL lineup advice videos, the only thing you need to do to be able to get this information on a consistent basis is to be a subscriber. So make sure you subscribe down below. Make sure you put on that bell icon, turn that on. This way you don't miss out on any of my NBA or NFL lineup advice videos when I upload them. With that being said, today is Saturday, December the 22nd, 2018. We have a 6-game slate in the main slate here in the association tonight. And let's get right to it, man. At point guard, got a couple of nice plays up at point guard. I really will have exposure to every one of these guys right here because they are all in favorable matchups. If I am going to choose anybody, obviously Ben Simmons and Steph Curry both, and John Wall at 10,000. I would probably prefer to pay those prices a little bit more. I will have exposure to John Wall, maybe a little bit more so than Westbrook, just due to the matchup. He's at home against Phoenix. You need about 50 spot from him. Would love to get 58 or more from him to be in a very good GPP spot. Then you got Steph Curry and Ben Simmons. I'd be honest with you, I'm going to be more on Steph Curry just simply because he's so good at home. They are playing at home. Dallas has some vulnerability in the backcourt with their injuries. No Dennis Smith as opposed to last year with Steph Curry battling Dennis Smith. No Dennis Smith at the present time. He is out. We do have some injury news at the point guard position, as you can see before I even get to it. Chris Paul, hamstring out. Obviously, that is a bump into certain players for today. Obviously for Houston, when you have no Chris Paul, there's going to be a bump up, obviously, to Mr. Harden. Definitely Harden is going to be in play today. Probably maybe a little bit more of a higher own play today, but that's totally understandable due to the fact that Chris Paul is out. Obviously, with Chris Paul out, you also get a bump also on Eric Gordon. So definitely keep that in mind. You could always pay down, not pay for Harden, and pay for one of the other studs in today's slate, and basically pay up for Eric Gordon. I think it's not a bad idea. You also have Mr. Brandon Knight. Brandon Knight probably will get a few minutes, not anything big, but definitely keep him in your rearview mirror, so to speak, just in case. You got Kyle Lowry out with the thigh injury. Obviously, that's going to open up the doors for Van Fleet, which we saw last night. Obviously, Dylan Wright with possibly no Danny Green. Danny Green is out. That obviously opens up the doors for Mr. Wright as well. So definitely keep that in mind. You also have to keep in mind also this young kid Lorenzo Brown has gotten a few minutes as well since Lowry has been out. So definitely keep him in mind. He's also at a very, very low price. I think he's at minimum value. So he is someone to consider as well. And who else here? Obviously with Goran Dragic out, Tyler Johnson in play. For Miami, Magruder and Wade get a bump as well, so you can consider that. And of course for Dallas, no Dennis Smith Jr. Obviously you got to consider Mr. JJ Barrera as well as the young rookie Mr. Brunson. Those two guys get a bump in minutes as well, so got to keep that in mind. That's the injury news there. Sorry I didn't say that right away, but back to the picks. Obviously I do love Steph Curry here today. Steph Curry, 9,400. I mean, he's a 10K and up player, so no doubt about it. I mean, he has 65 point upside any given day. He's averaging 45, 9,400. Pretty much need 47 from him. And on DK, he's 9,500. Pretty much the same price. You need about 47 fantasy points on either one of the platforms. Obviously, he's a better deal on Fanduel, being $100 cheaper here. And knowing that you got that 60,000 budget. So Curry definitely in play. What I like, 7 out of his last 9 games, at least 37 plus or better. And during that stretch, he has had 3 60-point games, 62, 60, and 64. So I really love that. And as I already pointed out, he is a player that can get you high 60s. So we know that he is a good value at this price. Definitely has a decent floor. He could probably get you 25 to 26. But as you can see, as far as fantasy points, his lowest has been 17 here in this game. That definitely is a concern, but I think he is one individual you're not going to get a whole lot of 17 or 18 fantasy point totals from. But nonetheless, I mean, minutes are going to be there for him. Usage rate is going to be there. You know he's going to take tons of shots. He takes about 19, 20 shots a game, and he's going to take about 8 or 9 threes per game as well. So you're going to have opportunity to gain some good fantasy points from him. And he gets to the foul line. He's an excellent free throw shooter, as we all know. He can get you some rebounds and some assists, and he is definitely not that bad of a defender. As you can see, steals have been really up in the last 3 games. He's had 8 steals and 1 block, so he's actually been playing very, very well. And of course, he is capable of always getting you double digits from the floor. So yeah, I love the whole matchup here with Dallas, just simply because even though Dallas is ranked 5th against opposing point guards, they really haven't faced a whole lot of good point guards as of late. And not only that, no Dennis Smith Jr. with Steph Curry. I mean, it's really a bad matchup, and there's a possibility that Wesley Matthews may be out today, and he's not a bad defender. That definitely hurts Dallas as well with Steph Curry and even with Klay Thompson. So I like the matchup for Steph Curry today. I think he's going to ball out. His home and away splits have been good. At home, he's been fantastic. 49% field goal percentage, 47% from 3. Okay, and he's averaging 27 floor points per game and 46 fantasy points. And he already, versus Dallas last year, he put up a 49 and 50 in 2 out of the 3 matchups. So pretty respectable. Usage rate is going to be through the roof as well. As you know, him and KD are the top 2 dogs on this team offensively. So Steph Curry, I definitely like him in play for me today. Other guys that obviously, like I said, I will have exposure to John Wall. You're going to have some exposure to John Wall. He's going up against Phoenix, and as we know, Phoenix has their issues up there in the front court as well, even though I think Devin Booker will probably be defending him. Phoenix has been giving up 37 fantasy points per game to opposing point guards as of late. You got Ben Simmons. He's going up against Toronto. Toronto with all their injuries up front, and even if Lowry was playing, Lowry is not a great defender. So Van Fleet, a little bit better defender than Kyle Lowry, but nonetheless, I think Ben Simmons is still in a good spot. Toronto's been allowing only 27.7 fantasy points per game to opposing point guards. But again, a couple of guys missing. The most important guy is Danny Green, which I think would have been defending Ben a little bit. Danny Green being out for Toronto. I mean, at the moment, he's a game-time decision, but I think he may be out. And Danny Green is out. Definitely opens up the doors for Ben Simmons and as well as for Jimmy Butler, which I really will get to in a moment. And we come down here a little lower. Obviously, Van Fleet in play. Rubio came up strong. I had him in the after hours last night. Was able to cash with him. He had a very good game. So Rubio's starting to get it going. Don't like him too much so here on the front end of a back-to-back against OKC and Russell Westbrook. Obviously, Westbrook will be the better play here and paying up for him. JJ Barrera could be someone to consider. We know he's a 1 fantasy point per minute player. So he's definitely someone in play. Tyler Johnson pretty much as of late has been a 1 fantasy point per minute player as well, playing about 20 to 25 minutes or so, 25 to 30 minutes, and actually he's been averaging close to 1 fantasy point per minute on average. So he is someone to consider here. And then you got here in the bottom end here, I mean, you got DeAnthony Melton, could be a possible play at 4,100. You have George Hill at 3,800 here. You pretty much need 18. He's capable of getting you 20, 25 or better if he plays at least 18 minutes. So he's someone to consider. He's been playing 22 and 28 as of late and has been getting close to about 20 points. So for that price tag and the amount of minutes, he's not a bad play. You got Devin Harris at 3,700. Pretty much need about 16, 17 fantasy points. Maybe get hopefully 18, 20 minutes. He's been getting close to 18. So nearly 1 fantasy point per minute for him. You got Landry Shamet here as well. He could be someone to consider at 3,600. And then, of course, like I said, Lorenzo Brown. Lorenzo Brown has been playing a few minutes during the course of Kyle Lowry's absence. So he is someone to consider. Keep him in your radar. He played 14, 7, and 16 minutes over the last 3 games, and it's been pretty much averaging 1 fantasy point per minute as well. And then you got Dante Exum here. Don't forget about Dante. This game gets a little out of control. OKC, who's been playing really, really good ball. Utah has been playing very well as of late also, so I think this game is going to stay competitive. But Mr. Exum has been getting 16 to as much as 21 minutes over the last 3 games. And as you can see, he put up a 24 spot last night. Again, remember, Utah is in the front end of a back-to-back, so OKC is a little fresher. All right, shooting guard. I did go over, and I don't know if I did, but Dallas 5th, as I told you here, 5th defending point guards. They have been giving up 31.2 fantasy points per game to opposing point guards over the last 5 games. And they did give up 53 to Jamal Murray not so long ago, 49 to De'Aaron Fox, and 43 to Trae Young. So, again, I love Steph Curry in the matchup here Definitely someone to consider. We go to shooting guard. A shooting guard, obviously, James Harden is in play, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not going to, again, I'm always, my job here, well, not my job, what I prefer to do to the information I prefer to give my audience is to give you guys a couple options. So Harden definitely is in play. I will have exposure to Harden. Who wouldn't? But I think he's going to be one of the more highly owned shooting guards here tonight. And rightfully so. With no Chris Paul, obviously he gets a major usage jump. But Devin Booker is definitely someone I'm really eyeing here against Washington. We know Washington's have the issue. Now, granted, he's going to probably more than likely be defending John Wall because he's been playing mostly the point, mostly as of late. And then, of course, he may get defensively, he may get some Bradley Beal defense, which I think Beal is a better defender than John Wall, at least in my opinion. So I like both of these guys, but I think I like I favor Booker a little bit more, even though he is on the road. Washington with their issues, I definitely still like him here. 8,900 here. He's 8,800 on DK. Washington's been giving up 32 fantasy points per game as of late to opposing shooting guards. And since him coming back, he has done pretty darn well. He was out with an injury, Mr. Booker. And we know he's capable of scoring. As you can see, he has been 45 or better in 3 straight games, and that's way above his average. So he's definitely good. He's a good cash play, at least for today, the way he's been showing as of late. And, of course, he is definitely someone you could put as a GPP play because he has 50-plus upside. So Booker, I definitely like here tonight. As well, his home and away splits are not too bad. 45% shooting from the floor, 29% from 3, 25 points per game, and averaging 40 fantasy points on the road. Other than him, man, I really, really do like Jimmy Butler's situation here today. He is just too cheap at 7,600. If Danny Green is out, I'm gonna love Jimmy Butler even more so because Jimmy Butler would have been defended by Danny Green, and we know Danny Green is a solid defender. And Jimmy Butler, that's going to open up the doors for him. I really think he could be a really sneaky play. And the last time I told you guys that he was going to be a sneaky play was right here. And he I don't know if it was the Toronto game or the Detroit game. I think it was the Toronto game. He put up 55 fantasy points. I think it's no different here. Again, no Danny Green. He's going to definitely be able to shoot the ball and shoot the ball well, especially from the three-point a spot where he's, if he gets going from there, he can definitely light it up as well. So Jimmy B is definitely in play for me, with 20 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 37.8 fantasy points per game. You need 37 from him here to meet value, which is really a low number. He's averaging about 38, and on DK, he's 7,400. So I like the spot tonight just simply because of the possibilities of no Danny Green. So again, Danny Green, I love Devin Booker. I'm going to have exposure to him, and I definitely will have a lot of exposure to Jimmy Butler. I think those are my 2 favorite plays here at shooting guard today, other than having exposure to James Harden at $12,000. But as you can see, you got guys here with 60-point upside like a Jimmy Butler that's 7,600. He definitely stands out for me as a GPP player. That he's here in a good possible matchup. Granted, it doesn't look good here on paper these few games, but as you can see, these games were a lot of blowouts. He's been in quite a bit of blowouts. And again, the matchup is Toronto today with no Danny Green, possibly no Kyle Lowry. I definitely like Mr. Jimmy B here. His home and away splits, 48% field goal percentage as of late, 34% from 3, 15 points per game, 29 fantasy points per game. He did play against Toronto earlier this year. Played 38 minutes. As we'll put it up right here. As you can see, actually 2 games already this year, 55 and 51 already. So he's already has owned them. In the last game out, he shot up 27 shots. On December the 5th, shot 4 of 7 from 3, had a solid game, 10 rebounds, did have 1 steal and 1 block. Look at the game before that, he has 6 steals. So, again, he brings a lot to the table. Toronto, 13th in defending shooting guards thus far this year. They only have been allowing 19 fantasy points to opposing shooting guards in the last 5 games, but they haven't faced anybody as of late. The last guy who was able to torch them like that was actually Mr. Jimmy Butler. So Jimmy Butler definitely owns the Toronto Raptors this year. Love Jimmy Butler here. He's my favorite play other than Devin Booker. And I guess, like I said already, James Harden is definitely someone you guys should consider in today's matchup. If you're looking for other guys, obviously, like I said before, Eric Gordon is in a good spot, 5,900. No Chris Paul. Obviously, he gets a bump in minutes and usage. He is definitely someone to consider. So you got to consider him there. Dennis Schroeder versus Utah. Utah is not the same team they were last year defensively. They have been playing better as of late, but 5,700 for this man coming off as coming off the bench as the sixth man. That is a nice price for Dennis Schroeder. Utah has been, as of late, giving up 33.5 fantasy points per game to opposing shooting guards. So I definitely like the opportunity that Schroeder may have here today. Another guy you got to consider is Chris Middleton. Mr. Brogdon is out, and Middleton has been playing small forward, so he's probably going to be moved to the shooting guard spot, possibly in today's matchup against Miami. I still like him in the small forward, the 3 or in the 2 spot in this game. 7,000, you need 35. He's going to be in a good spot. Miami, as of late, has been giving up 30 fantasy points per game to opposing shooting guards and 28 fantasy points to opposing small forwards. So it's a possibility. It's a good spot for Middleton here in that matchup. No Wesley Matthews as far as the injuries. No Wesley Matthews here. That definitely opens up the hole for Mr. Doncic, obviously, just to let you know about injury news. Wesley Matthews, if he is out, Doncic obviously gets a boost, as well as Finney Smith. Every time he is out, usually Finney Smith usually gets the bump. So look out for Finney Smith as a possible play. Who's, probably is only about he probably is in the 3,800 range as far as price. So he's definitely in a great spot. And as you can see here, the game time decision on Danny Green, if his knee is still sore, he's not going to be playing, and that's definitely going to be great for Jimmy Butler. But at the same time, this is going to open up the doors for Mr. Dylan Wright to be in the starting lineup again, which he played very, very well again. And then, of course, the bump in minutes for Mr. Lorenzo Brown and Van Fleet. So keep those guys in mind. If you want to save some money at shooting guard, obviously, like I said already, Dylan Wright definitely comes into play, only 3,900. He's probably going to be the best play there at that price tag for these guys. And who else I think here? Actually, obviously, with Mr. Brogdon out, you could possibly consider Tony Snell getting some additional minutes, as well as Pat Connaughton. I think Pat will definitely get the biggest bump in minutes and usage for the Milwaukee Bucks with Brogdon out, and as well as Chris Middleton. So those are the guys you want to consider there. All right, let's go over to small forward. At small forward, as far as injury news, as you can see, rest day for Kawhi Leonard. So Kawhi Leonard is going to be resting, and obviously with Kawhi Leonard out, Mr. OG Anunoby is going to get a lot of time on the floor, possibly will start. Norman Powell will get a bump in minutes, and you can also see CJ Miles. Also keep CJ Miles there in your radar as well as a possible play for you guys while Kawhi Leonard is resting. Yeah, but, Giannis is up here at the top, 11,008. He's not in a bad spot with Miami. I do love Paul George. Once again, I've given you Paul George about 4 or 5 times already this year, but he's been so solid. Great cash play for sure for you cash play players in this matchup today. I do love him still also as a GPP play because he is capable of getting you 60, and at his price tag, he's still under 10. That's not a bad price for Paul George, so I do like Paul George here. In this matchup today, Paul George, 9,800. You need pretty much 48 for Mr. George. He is 9,400 on DK. You need pretty much 46. Viable, you could play him in either one of the 2 platforms. Like I said, definitely a good cash play because he's been pretty consistent at about 39, 40 fantasy points or better on the average as of late. But 9 straight games at 41 plus, that is very, very nice. And yes, you can see he has 70-point upside. He did just a 63 spot here against Sacramento a day ago. So he is more of a 60-point upside guy. Definitely love him here. If he can get me 58 or better as a GPP play, I'll be ecstatic. But he's in a favorable matchup, man. Again, favorable matchup. Let's go and take a look at him over here at small forward. Paul George. Just love the factors, man. The minutes are there. 36-plus minutes. Pretty much 7 out of his last 9 games at that rate. The usage rate over 28, 29%. Pretty much over 30, as you can see, as of late. And look at the shots, man. It's him and Russell Westbrook are the 2 key guys here for OKC as far as shooting the rock, and he's been doing it all. Look at the 3-point shooting, about 8 or 9 threes per game on average as of late. And he gets to the foul line, and he's an excellent free throw shooter, and he fills up the stat sheet. He can get you rebounds. He can get you assists. He turns over the ball quite a bit, of course, over the course of the last 2 games, 8 turnovers. We definitely want him to clean that up. But as far as defensively, he is going to play some defense. He'll get you some steals, as you can see, and he will get you the occasional block. So all that additional fantasy points. And look at the way he's been shooting as far as offensively from the floor, 25, 31, 32, 33, 43. He has had massive offensive games shooting from the floor. Incredible scoring by Paul George. I think he's fantastic, man. His home and away splits away from OKC, 42% field goal percentage, 34% from 3, and he's averaging 25.5 points per game with 49, nearly 50 fantasy points per game on the road. He did play Utah earlier this year, and he had a 49 spot against them, and as you can see, he has had pretty good success throughout the last maybe 8 or 9 games against these guys. He shot 80%. I get this. He played 30 minutes. He shot 8 of 10 from the field, 5 of 6 from 3, 10 out of 12 from the free throw line, and he had 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals. He has such a balanced stat sheet. He shot 80% and 83% from the floor and from 3 respectively, with 31 points and 49 pretty much fantasy points. That's an incredible game by Paul George. Utah coming in here 9th in defending small forwards, allowing 21.4 fantasy points per game over the last 5 games, which is impressively good. But only Paul George is the last guy that they have faced who's a top-tier small forward that has been able to put up those kind of numbers against them. And that's the reason why. Other than that, Durant played him a couple of games ago, and Durant only put up a 39 spot, but Durant had a very bad shooting night. He shot under 35% from the floor. So, again, for him to still put up 39, that means he definitely was having a poor night shooting the ball. Other guys you can look at here in this matchup, obviously Mr. Durant comes into play, but I like Steph Curry more in the matchup. But then again, Durant is in a favorable matchup, under 10K also. Very, very nice price tag for Kevin Durant, who has 60, 70-point upside. You come down here, Otto Porter out, as you all know. So Otto Porter out, that's definitely a benefit for Trevor Ariza. So you got to consider Trevor Ariza here going up against his former team of just a week ago, the Phoenix Suns. So that's so bizarre that you get traded and then a week later you're basically like playing against your old teammates. Obviously, I won't consider it a revenge game because obviously I think everything is cool with Phoenix. It's just a matter of Phoenix needed to make a move and Washington needed to make a move as well. So Trevor Ariza and Mr. Oubre both facing their former teammates. I think those are 2 guys you definitely got to consider. Oubre is only 4,800. And, of course, Ariza 6K. Obviously, the big deal here is OG Anunoby over here stepping in for Kawhi Leonard at 3,700. He's definitely a lock. You also got to consider Dorian Finney-Smith here as a possible play at 3,700 if Wesley Matthews is out, so definitely keep him in mind. And other than that, obviously the usual guys, Mr. House, possibly Mr. Green, depending on the Houston game. If that game gets a little out of hand, you can see those guys getting a few more minutes on the floor. But the key guy here is OG. And then you also got to consider C.J. Miles as well and Norman Powell. I think Norman Powell is the next guy other than C.J. Miles. I think if you're not going to be – Powell at 3,500 and where is he? OG only 3,700. I mean, take your pick. You can even probably slot them both in there if Toronto's going to stay in this game. And I truly believe Toronto is just disciplined enough defensively that I think they can keep this game fairly close, even though they don't have no Kawhi and no Kyle Lowry. I think that they can at least keep the game close enough, but they definitely have a lot of injuries. And if not, then Philadelphia definitely gets far out ahead, and those are the guys you got to consider as possible plays. All right, power forward. At power forward, obviously, the guys that stand out to you is Pascal Siakam. Obviously, with the injuries there, he's going to be slotted. He's probably going to play center. Serge Ibaka, I think prior to me getting the video, I think I saw a notification that Ibaka is out. So, obviously, Siakam is in play. But I think, he's an obvious play. I'm not big on Aldridge. Aldridge will probably be somewhere in his range of 35 fantasy points, somewhere around there. But for his price tag, I don't think he can get me 40 or better in a matchup against Houston. But Siakam, definitely, I can see him at 7,200. With no Ibaka here, no Kawhi Leonard, yeah, he's going to get a ton of usage, and he's going to have to play well, and he's going to get tons of minutes as well. So just due to the minutes and the usage, you got to at least take a stab at Pascal Siakam. But I'm going to go with Draymond Green. Draymond Green still has not had a triple-double this year, in the games that he has played. And he is a double-double, triple-double pretty much any given night. But he has not been playing the Draymond. He's not been the Draymond Green that we are all accustomed to seeing. It's just a matter of time. I want to be there the day that I choose him, that he has a good game. I did have him out there a couple games ago. I put him out there for you guys. And, of course, he only put like a 27 or 31. I don't remember which one it was, if it was the Sacramento game or Memphis game. But not so long ago, I did give you guys Draymond Green. I'm going back to the well with Draymond Green. I mean, it's a good matchup for him. 6,600. You pretty much need 33. DK 6,300. You need about 31, 32 to meet value. And we know this guy's got 50-point upside. So he's definitely good, solid GPP play for sure. He hasn't been showing it. He hasn't had a big game yet this year. His biggest game has been 44 and 45. So as you can see, he can get us over 40. And we know from last season, obviously, that he's capable. But as you can see, he has not had a triple-double yet. If I remember correctly, looking at this, he came close here as well, but has not had a triple-double this year yet. So hopefully tonight is the night for Draymond Green. Let's come and take a look at him over here at the Cruncher. And Mr. Draymond Green, I mean, doesn't look sexy, the numbers here. Obviously, a lot of these games, a few of these games have been, pretty close, and a few of them have been blowouts. He's not taking the same amount of shots as last year, which is a really, really surprise. But I'm hoping for that to change today. What I like best is that the matchup is there against Dallas. I mean, there's really nobody up front for Dallas that can actually match up with Draymond Green, and that's more of the reasons why I like him more, so much so. Of course, he also played last year against these guys, and he did put up 43 and 40. My only concern was that is last year he did that while he was getting tons of usage and he was taking shots, whereas that hasn't been the case so far this year. Maybe there's more something to it. I don't know if he's still pretty hurt, or maybe things are not going too well with his teammates. Who knows? But still, I think that price tag is just still a little cheap for Draymond Green. You got to take a stab at him, But overall, as far as home and away splits, it hasn't been shooting that well either. I mean, his balls at home has been really, really bad. 38% field goal percentage, 20% from three. He is still averaging good rebounds and assists, 8 rebounds and 7 assists. Only 6 points per game at home this year, 30 fantasy points, and the 30 fantasy points is all due to him getting a couple of steals and possible blocks, and at the same getting those rebounds and assists. But last year, as I already showed you, he did put up a 43 and 40 in those two meetings last year against Dallas. Dallas is coming in here second defending power forwards, but as of late, over the last 5 games, they've been coughing up 38 fantasy points per game to opposing power forwards. They gave up 48 to Gallinari, 39 to Belizia, and 39 to John Collins. So again, there is the possibilities, the potential for Draymond Green with his skill set to be able to put at least a 35-40 up there, and we know he's capable of getting possibly 50. So I like Draymond Green here. Will be willing to take a stab at him as a GPP. Of course, I will have exposure. Pretty much about 30% of my lineups will have Pascal Siakam, because you just got to take advantage of the factors that he's going to be utilized a whole lot. I do like also Kelly Olynyk here. I think Kelly Olynyk is a great play here. 5,400 with the amount of usage he's been getting as well as of late. He's also has 35, 38, 39, pretty much around there upside. And at 5'4", you need 27 pretty much to meet value. So I like him there. He's going up against Milwaukee. Milwaukee has given up 31.5 fantasy points per game as of late to opposing power forwards, so he's in play. You also got to consider his teammate, Mr. Johnson, as well. Johnson's only 3,800, and he can get you about 30 fantasy points, so there's that possibility. You also have Josh Jackson here for Phoenix against Washington with their injuries up front. Josh Jackson is in play. Washington has been giving up 31 fantasy points per game over the course of the last 5 games to opposing power forwards, so there definitely is potential there for Mr. Jackson, who has 40-point upside as well. And then you got Derek Favors versus OKC. I like Mr. Favors here as well. OKC has been having some issues there in the power 4 and the 4 spot as of late, giving up 40 fantasy points per game to opposing power forwards. That's over the last 5 to 6 games. So they're coming into this actual slate, that is the most in the power forward position out of any team here in tonight's slate. So you definitely might have to have some exposure to Derek Favors. I know I will. At 5,200, you only need 26, and he's been averaging about 26, but he has potential to get you about 35 fantasy points or better. And let's see how he's done as of late. The minutes have been a little down. If he can get the minutes, I think he can definitely get us there. As you can see, he's been at 30, 25. He's pretty much been averaging. I mean, he's pretty much solid, pretty much good to be a cash play here. If it's floor as of late as far as fantasy points has been about 22 on average. I see he got 22 twice. Not a bad cash play. Probably not so much of a GPP play, but I will have him in the lineup. Obviously, you got Bam Adebayo. You could definitely consider him. PJ Tucker, obviously, with the massive minutes he plays in a matchup against San Antonio, you got to consider him as a possible play. And like I said already, James Johnson is definitely a play at 3,800. And that's pretty much it that I like here at power forward. At center was a little tough one. Obviously, man, Embiid is in play, but then again, with Toronto, with everybody missing, with a lot of guys being possibly out, the game can get out of hand. If it does, you got to have exposure to Mike Muscala, who's only 4,200, his teammate. But I think Embiid is in play, and I think Toronto can keep this game fairly close and to give Embiid enough time on the floor to put up a 50 spot in this matchup today. So you could go with Embiid, but again, if you want to fit in some of these other guys, as a matter of fact, I didn't put these guys in. Let's just put the guys that I put out for you guys to see where we stand as far as how the lineup looks. And these are the 3 guys, 4, and the 4th guy was Mr. Green. So right there's the first 4 guys, and that's 5,300. And like I said, you could go Muscala here if you really think that this game. Remember, Muscala, most importantly, if you guys don't know, Muscala's been starting and he's been playing the 4 spot. So Fanduel will throw you off because Muscala is only labeled here as a center. And DK, if you play DK, definitely hands down, you could put Muscala as your power forward. You don't have to put him as your center, and you can still go and get yourself somebody like DeAndre Ayton, who I love best here in his matchup here today, or even DeAndre Jordan, and still be able to get Muscala in that DK lineup. But if you're on FanDuel, you choose one or the other. That's the only way you can go. You can go Embiid and pay $10,500, or you could go to Muscala at $4,200. I will probably have exposure. I'm going to have exposure to both. I'm going to make 1 or 2 lineups with Mr. Embiid, and I'm going to make a few lineups with Muscala and take advantage of that $4,200 price tag, where he only needs to get you 20, 21 to meet value, and he has 30-point upside. Let's take a look at him a little closer here. And he has 30-point upside. He's got 34 here, and that's the one time. He only did 30. Yeah, he did it twice. I felt like he did it a couple of times. So he done 30s, 34 and 33 2 times. So he's capable of getting you high 20s, but he needs to get the minutes. If he doesn't get 25 to 26 minutes or better, then it'll definitely be a wrap there. So again, Embiid is in play. My favorite play here is DeAndre Ayton. I'm going with the young kid here, 7,400. He's been playing well as of late. Phoenix has been playing well as a whole as of late as a team. 45, 36, 38. I love the factors that in the last 5 games out of the last 6, 5 out of his last 6 games, he's been putting up at least 36 fantasy points or better, which is above average. So he's been trending upward, which I always like to see from any player that I may be considering in my lineup. 16 points, 10 rebounds. He's averaging pretty much a double-double. He's had a number of those this year. 34.4 fantasy points. Cannot go wrong with that. 7,400, you need 37. Very much attainable for him as he's done that as of late. And on DK, 7,200, you pretty much need 72 there. So I like Mr. Ayton there as well. And, again, we go over here to the Fantasy Cruncher and we'll take a look at him a little further. And DeAndre Ayton, and you got to take advantage of Washington. They struggle up front. You got to, you got to have exposure to their defense as far as in their center spot. I love picking on Washington, and this is the perfect kit. He has not faced Washington before, and he's not going to be. There's nobody really there, anybody to be able to stop him. On top of that, both teams have been not that great defensively as far as defensive rebounds, but again, Washington is near the bottom as far as rebounding is concerned, and this kid is up there in the top 14, 13 in the league as far as rebounding, and he's averaging 10 rebounds or more a game, so I like the fact that he can rack up a lot of rebounds here in this matchup. But as you can see, man, the 5 out of his last 6 games, pretty much 36, 37 fantasy points or better. The minutes are there. He's getting the usage, very, very nice usage, about 20 to 22% on average, and as of late, as you can see, for about a good 7-8 games, he's getting at least 10, 11, maybe as much as 12 shots per game, which is awesome. And he gets to the foul line, he's been actually pretty darn good. 3 of 4, 5 of 5, 4 of 5. So he's been very, very efficient there. And what he brings to the table is the rebounding. He's also a very good offensive rebounder. If you guys were following me with WNBA, you know how much I love offensive rebounds. And you see a whole lot of that in the WNBA. And you don't see it that much in the NBA. And this kid has shown you here that he rebounds on both sides of the ball, and that's what we want to do. That's what you want a player to do, and he's been fantastic. Look at the last game: 8 offensive rebounds, 10 rebounds, defensive rebounds, 18 fantasy points. 18 total rebounds. That is a lot of damn rebounds, and that's a nice balance there. And then, of course, he brings some good defense. Steals, can get you some blocks. So he brings a lot to the table. DeAndre Ayton is definitely in play for me today. His home and away splits, he's been fantastic. 60% field goal percentage, 85% from the free throw line, averaging 10.5 rebounds per game and 16 points per game, as well as 35 fantasy points per game on the road this year, which is pretty impressive for a rookie. Washington coming in here 20th in defending centers, allowing 32 fantasy points per game to opposing centers as of late over the course of 5 games. They did give up 41 to Capella, 30 to Jarrett Allen, 57 to Miles Turner, and 59 about 7 games back to Tristan Thompson. So, they have had their issues there. I think the kid here with his rebounding skills and his blocking and steal skills, defensive skills, can definitely get it done. So I am in favor of DeAndre Ayton. Like I said, I will have exposure to Mike Muscala. You can pencil him in there. You're going to be in that range. So you got 4,800. There is some value here, like I mentioned, as far as some injuries. As you can see here, at center, no Valanciunas. Obviously, that brings in Ibaka, but Ibaka is not out. So obviously, Siakam benefits for Toronto. And then, of course, you can consider Mr. Greg Monroe. Other than these guys, Muscala is the guy that I like best. And then you could consider Nolan's Noel here against Utah if the game gets out of hand. He will get some minutes. And you could always consider Thomas Bryant against Phoenix here for the Washington Wizards. Brook Lopez has been pretty good as of late too, 4,900. But the guys at the top, like I said, Embiid definitely in play. Other than that, I do like Whiteside here, but his minutes have been restricted because Bam Adebayo has been playing quite a bit. But when he's playing well, they leave him in there. Spoelstra leaves him in there. He is capable of lighting you up for 1.2 fantasy points per minute. So he definitely is more than a 1 fantasy point per minute player. So Mr. Whiteside is definitely someone to consider. He can get you 40 in like 25 minutes, in 25, 30 minutes. So if he was to get 25, 30 minutes, he has 40 fantasy point upside. Which I really do like. But Ayton is in play. DeAndre Jordan going up against Golden State. You always got to take advantage of that. Golden State has been giving up 39 fantasy points per game, ladies and gentlemen, over the course of the last 5 games. Is definitely someone to consider, and they're 14th in defending centers. So you got to consider him as well. But like I said, Embiid, Ayton, Muscala, these are the guys that definitely should be the top plays here. And that's basically it, man, ladies and gentlemen. Now, that's pretty much it, man. That's where we at right now. If anything changes, it'll be on the Twitter. I will tweet out later the final lineup, but I think right now I'm pretty good. I feel pretty darn good about these 5 players right here and the other players that I mentioned. Remember, I always try to give you options, try to give you some information that may be able to help you make a decision if it's either or. Again, you don't have to go with these 5 guys. This is just my opinion. I will sometimes even play these guys and I mix match a few of the other ones that I mentioned, and sometimes some of the ones I mentioned, after a little bit of due diligence, I start realizing there's 1 or 2 other opportunities somewhere else. So again, later on Twitter, I will retweet more or less where I'm at. Again, if you have any questions, you can obviously comment down in the section here of this video. I'll be more than happy to go back and forth with you and discuss the actual slate. And if you guys are playing the after hours, remember I always play a lot of after hour games. So if you guys are interested in finding out more or less what I'm thinking, you can actually ask me those questions there. Well, and of course you could do it on any one of my social medias. And that's basically it, man. Again, good luck tonight. Enjoy your Saturday. Christmas is around the corner, and I'm looking forward to that. And but at the same time, it'll be nice to win a little bit more money over the next few days. So let's go out there and let's get it. All right. I'll see you guys on the next video. See you tomorrow.